made a video this morning ending on the note that globalist liberal politicians like Keir Starmer are in quite deep trouble. Politicians like Starmer, along with the rest of the liberal elite, try and pretend that the modern globalist multicultural liberal worldview is impenetrable. It's effectively a utopia. All you have to do is believe in it, and it will end up being perfect. Now, while you may have been able to get away with that in the eras of Blair and Clinton, it's getting increasingly hard to hold to that political line. The problem here is that Keir Starmer and Tony Blair and the rest of the liberal elites in the Western world bought into the theory brought forth by Francis Fukuyama, an American political scientist who wrote a book in 1991 called The End of History and the Last Man. This book prophesies that after the Cold War and communism and fascism and all the other political ideologies, that we come to the end of this historical argument, that globalist liberal democracy was the answer for the future and always would be. While this sounds quite high-minded, you'll be aware of this ideology because it's what penetrates the WEF and the UK government in this day and age, as well as every major Western government. The idea is we're in this liberal utopia, we're in a sort of post-cultural age, a post-racial age, a post-religious age, where everything is just one giant shopping mall of liberal ideas and consumer capitalism. However, the flaws in this ideology are obvious to see. Multiculturalism hasn't turned into a pluralism of cultures rubbing shoulders together as if nothing's wrong. People have realised that identity is much deeper than simple cultural and social dress. Secondly, as I've spoken about on this channel before, many people in the Western world seemed willing to embrace a post-racial world. However, when you look at the world today, we are not in a post-racial world. The woke people especially are obsessed with race. In reality, it's only the white people that are supposed to live in a post-racial world. Everyone else's identities are supposed to be celebrated. Now, you understand, I'm not making an argument whether racial identity is good or bad. I'm simply saying that if one is to say they're black and proud or brown and proud, the Guardian newspaper and the BBC will applaud them. If you say you're white and proud, you're immediately problematic and evil. Further still, our post-religious world hasn't exactly led to this enlightened society where everybody is walking around like some reasonable scientist. In reality, it's led to nihilism.
Where are you from?
I'm from Wales, but I'm still like British.
No, look, listen, to explain it the right way, Wales is in the same country as England, it is.
No, I'm not England.
Yeah, but it basically isn't it?
No, I'm Welsh.
Yeah, but I'm
Wales. I'm my own continent.
Letitia is definitely my kind of girl, and I think I'm gonna get along with her very well. Her accent is quite strong. It's from London, no? Where is he from?
The lack of shared transcendent values has created a materialistic and ultimately self-centered hedonistic culture. Yes, you can get short moments of extreme gratification, but in the long run people are increasingly unhappy, proved by the huge amount of mental health meds passed out these days. While many still remain cynical to the arguments around spirituality and religion due to the behaviour of the church on one side and some of the woo-woo stuff on the other, I do believe in principle removing these things takes away a safety valve from the overthinking human being. On top of removing a sense of peace that you can get no matter how noisy the world is, we've also destroyed our value structure and our meaning structure, and with that the unity we once found in shared religious and cultural values. In this gap, all we've been left with is ideology, specifically left-wing ideology, because the right has given up on philosophy, spirituality, theology, and thinking and turned its mind to money. Yet in this fever dream, largely powered by Western and especially American capitalism, we've ignored the world is changing around us. On the one hand, we have a resurgent and militant Islam, which thinks very differently to the Western world, and in a matter of decades, Muslims will be the biggest religion on the planet. Second to this, we have the growth of new powers. That could be the Middle East, the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, all thinking very differently to the Western world with very different aims about how the 21st century is going to go. Another key point is capitalism getting out of control itself. We've turned from a sort of freedom and liberty capitalism in the 80s and 90s to a hyper-capitalism now, where multinationals essentially have more power than whole nation states. The multinationals are also very keen on the globalist ideology. That's why they want a constant stream of low-paid workers from the third world to staff their factories, while on top of that they'll play along with the woke ideology to seem like they're socially conscious and they know what they're talking about in the modern world. Of course, with all of this in mind, the very foundations that Francis Fukuyama stood upon when he claimed that we were at the end of history are being destroyed. Just think about the US election coming up towards the end of the year. If we're really at the end of history, we should have the best and brightest people being put forward in order to rule the Western world. Instead, we've got Donald Trump on one side and Kamala Harris on the other. While these two may have their political differences, all they fundamentally are is caretakers for an economic, political and social system which is out of the hands of the European and Western peoples. The end of history has been a myth all along. In fact, it's been a smokescreen for a globalist takeover of the Western world. After all, the whole idea that you can have an end of history is an absurdism in and of itself. Of course, everything always changes. That's the nature of manifest life. It's why Heraclitus, thousands of years ago in ancient Greece, stated that you cannot step into the same river twice. What Heraclitus means is, of course, you can step in the same river in an abstract sense, but in reality, the river has changed as it's flowed downstream, and you're not the same man that stepped into it the last time you did. So, we are at a crossroads, we're at the breaking point, everybody can see it, the cracks are all around us. However, our political elite are determined to ignore it and push through the globalist utopia, whether the people want it or not. This is why I believe that just like the Soviet Union, our present system will eventually just collapse in on itself, and at that time history will restart. The big arguments about the big ideas will restart, and we should be prepared as Western people to be ready for that. What that means to me is a reawakening of our old traditions in order to understand who we are. The coming world is likely to be chaotic and uncertain, with sectarian factions forming everywhere. This is why I'm somewhat buoyed by the potential future. Yes, it could be messy in parts, but in principle I don't believe men are supposed to spend their time wandering around shopping malls and playing computer games and imbibing pornography. I think when you look at what made the Western world great, it was a sense of vitality, a spiritual certainty, a desire to venture into new parts of the earth. I really do believe that if we get it right spiritually, politically and personally, we can work towards a society and a world which is rooted around social harmony, peace and balance. Of course, that will be firmly rooted in standing for what we firmly believe in. Now we need to figure out what those values fundamentally are. This is why it's very much an aim of mine to create a forum and a space where people can discuss philosophical, political and personal ideas about the future. I think that's essential in this day and age, one for our psychological health and to have a positive vision of the future in what is quite a negative time. Now, as I say, that may take me a while to put together. I am working on it at present. But in the meantime, do let me know your thoughts below and do consider subscribing to the channel.